What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. The 2024 season is officially in the books, which means it is a great time to start evaluating those 2024 rookies on our Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. Today, we're going to be starting with the quarterback position. We'll go through each of the positions in future videos, but with these quarterbacks, we're going to look at where they are currently valued in the market over on KTC. We're also going to talk about where they started, how they've trended, and then how I'm evaluating them, whether them being a buy, a sell, or a hold going into the 2025 offseason. So without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video. Let's start talking about these quarterbacks. All right, so I'm going to go over to this side of the screen. That way we can put up some graphics on the screen. But if we want to talk about how these players have trended over time, we got to talk about how they started. As you can see on the screen, we got the offseason QB ADPs. Now, this is for super flex leagues. This is also your rookie draft ADP. So as you can see, Caleb Williams, he was coming off the board as the 101, Jayden Daniels after him, followed by Drake Maye, JJ McCarthy. Those were your first round quarterbacks. And then Bo Nix, Michael Penix in the second round, Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, Joe Milton, and Michael Pratt all there. The NA for Michael Pratt just means that he wasn't drafted in the first 5 rounds of rookie drafts. So this is kind of where the guys started. I think when you look at this, obviously this was based off of the expectations. Caleb, everybody was talking about a generational prospect, could come in and be that Pat Mahomes type of talent. At least that's what the narrative was coming into the NFL. That's why you went the 101. You have a bunch of these other guys. Just taking you back to that NFL draft. We had a really historic NFL draft where we had 6 quarterbacks drafted within the top 12. All of these guys, McCarthy, Nix, Penix, Daniels, Maye, everybody goes in the top 12 pick. All of those quarterback needy teams go in and get one, and that's kind of the draft class that we had coming into the year. Now you look at how these guys have trended over the year, and what did they do when they got out onto the football field? How did they produce for fantasy football teams? Obviously, they need to produce for their NFL roster, but we care about fantasy football points. So you're looking at the fantasy points per game averages of all of these quarterbacks. This is for your 4-point passing touchdown league. So Jayden Daniels, he led the pack at 21.5 fantasy points per game, followed by Bo Nix, Joe Milton at 19.2. I put an asterisk by Joe Milton because he only played in one game. That was the final game of the year, but he scored 19 points. So he does get that average of 19 points, but yeah, there's got to be an asterisk by that one. Now, Caleb Williams averaged 15.3, Drake Maye 13.4, Spencer Rattler 10.3 because he played in quite a few games this year as well. And then Michael Penix finishing off the year with 9.4 fantasy points per game in his couple of starts that he got for the Atlanta Falcons. JJ McCarthy, obviously a redshirt year due to the injury, did not get to play a snap, so he gets the NA. Jordan Travis didn't play. Michael Pratt didn't play. This is kind of the way that you look at these players as far as production goes coming into the offseason. But now that we've kind of gotten an overview out of the way, I want to talk about each of these players in depth. Let's talk about how they've trended on Keep Trade Cut and how you could manipulate the trade market based on their current value over there on that website. Let's talk about Jayden Daniels first. Jayden Daniels is the highest ranked quarterback over on Keep Trade Cut. Now, he obviously had a very good year. Looking at the Commanders' record, 12-5, taking them to a playoff game. We get to watch them in the wild card here on the 12th of January. Should be a very good game. I also think Jayden Daniels is going to be the favorite for Rookie of the Year. I think he ends up winning that award as well. But you look at his Keep Trade Cut trends over the last 6 months from the start of the season till now. He went from the quarterback 12 back 6 months ago all the way up to the QB 3 in Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues at the moment. Now, this is a kid who's still 24 years old. Obviously, he played that extra year of college. He didn't come out as a junior. He ended up going back for his senior year, but he's a player to me that I think we need to hold at this cost. If you guys remember last year when we did this video, CJ Stroud actually got up to QB3 as well over on Keep Trade Cut, and at the time I said he was a hold, maybe even leaning towards a sell, just because it felt like his value got really high. I think the same thing can kind of be said for Jayden Daniels. However, the one thing that Jayden Daniels has that CJ Stroud didn't have is some rushing upside, so I think he should have a little bit better of a floor for fantasy football purposes just based off of the rushing upside alone. Now, obviously, if you're going to hold him, you need to kind of know what players are around him when you're looking at those quarterbacks that are value adjacent to him. Like I said, he's QB3, so you got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. These are all the guys around him, but look at that value, 9,411 points. He's really just close to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. So I will say right now, if you can make a move for one of those two players, Lamar or Josh, I do think at this point in time, those are safer assets to have in Dynasty Fantasy Football rather than Jayden Daniels. So if you can make that move, definitely go do that. But there's definitely an argument to be had about Jayden Daniels being above Joe Burrow, being above Jalen Hurts, being above Patrick Mahomes due to the rushing upside, the youth, and the chance that this offense even improves going into next year. Maybe finding another weapon, improving that offensive line a little bit, getting another running back in that system that's going to be a little bit better than Brian Robinson with a good running back class in 2025. There's a lot of opportunities for Jayden Daniels, but it feels very much to me that his value is almost peaked out. So I am holding him if I have him on my rosters. I'm not selling him, but I don't know if I'm necessarily going out to buy him if he's not on the roster either, unless I can get him for a fair price. Now, I will show you value adjacent overall players. It is kind of hard to trade for quarterbacks unless you are giving a quarterback or getting one back in return. So that's why I like to show the quarterbacks first. But looking at the assets around him, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, I think obviously if you were going to be trading for a quarterback in a super flex league, you're more than happy to give Gibbs and Bijan, even if it's including throwing an extra first on top of that to go get the QB. That makes a ton of sense to me, but it does feel like Jayden Daniels being a top 5 asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues, according to Keep Trade Cut, that is a very, very, very valuable asset that probably cannot increase in value much more unless we truly do believe that he has #1 overall type of upside at the position, which he might just do it with the rushing upside. But hey, what about some of these other rookie quarterbacks? Let's go talk about Drake Maye of the New England Patriots. Drake Maye had himself a decent year as well. He threw for 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Obviously, the New England Patriots did not have a great year. They go 4-13. They are going to be picking towards the top of the draft here this year, hopefully getting some more weapons for Drake Maye because the supporting cast this year wasn't great for him. We're talking about guys like Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Ramondre Stevenson. These are the guys that he's throwing the football to and playing football with. Not the best offense in the NFL. We all know that. Obviously, there's also going to be a head coaching change. We hope it's a little bit more of an offensive-minded guy because the talent of Drake Maye is spectacular. But if you're looking at his overall Keep Trade Cut value over the last 6 months, he's went from the quarterback 18 to the quarterback 10. Now, he's 22 years old, younger than Jayden Daniels. Obviously, has the build that you want out of that quarterback, 6'4", 225. That's prototypical size. I think when you're looking at his current value, though, being a top 10 guy after only throwing for 2,200 yards, it makes me a little bit nervous about Drake Maye's value. Now, I am still classifying him as a hold at this cost, even though I'm a little bit nervous about it, because when you look at the value adjacent quarterbacks, he's below guys like Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, but he's above some guys like Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Kyler Murray. And I think the upside of a guy like Drake Maye does match where he's currently ranked. This is also a guy who ran the football a lot as a rookie. We got to see him use his legs, and it did show to be a little bit of a weapon for him here as a rookie. Now, when I'm looking at this list of quarterbacks, there are guys like Bo Nix that I think have an argument to be above Drake Maye just based off of the production. But for me, myself, my personal opinion, I do still think that Drake Maye is a more talented quarterback, and I probably would rather have him on my Dynasty Fantasy Football teams than Bo Nix. I agree with the Kyler Murray. I think you put Drake above Kyler Murray at this point. I think there's an argument Drake Maye could be above CJ Stroud, but we did see CJ Stroud have a good rookie season, so maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit. I lean just a tiny bit here where Drake Maye may be a little bit overvalued, but I think the hype is warranted. I think where I like him the most with some of these values is when you look at the value adjacent overalls. Now, this is probably going to be a theme because I just prefer the quarterback position over these other positions in my super flex leagues. I do have a little bit of a premium value on that when I am building my rosters. So seeing him with guys like Trey McBride, as good as Trey McBride is, Drake London, JSN, I'm definitely taking Drake Maye over those guys. So if you can make one of those moves, do it. But I think where he's currently rostered in those value adjacent quarterbacks, I think he's currently a hold in that market just based off of the production and the upside alone. Now let's talk a little bit about another guy. We're going to go talk about Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix definitely has an argument for Rookie of the Year as well. I think he's top 3 in the award voting right now, just behind Brock Bowers and Jayden Daniels. But this is another rookie quarterback who's going to be playing in the playoffs here this week. He gets that wild card game against the Buffalo Bills after leading the Denver Broncos to a 10-7 record. Bo Nix, he exceeded expectations for us here in year 1. You look at how he started. Quarterback 25 at the start of the year, found his way all the way up to QB 11 now going into the offseason of year 1. I do think that Bo Nix is a sell at this price. This is a guy who, like I said, exceeded expectations. I do like the kid. I think he's pretty talented, but when you're telling me he's a top 12 quarterback, even though he did perform as one this year as a rookie, it does very much feel like this is another player player who is close to the ceiling, if not already capped out in potential. Because when I look at those value adjacent QBs, he's in the same market as guys like Drake Maye, in the same market as guys like CJ Stroud, being valued over players like Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray, who, quite honestly, I think Caleb Williams is a better talent, and I would rather have Caleb Williams on my Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters at the moment than Bo Nix. This is a perfect opportunity for you to sell high on Bo, who, keep in mind, was a second-round rookie pick last offseason, and potentially be able to go get a guy who was the 101 in Caleb Williams, who, for whatever reason, is still being undervalued. Now, let's talk about the other players that are around him. Guys like JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, Devon Achane. A lot of these assets, I think you have the argument of Bo Nix. Like I said, I prefer the quarterback position, but where you were drafting Bo Nix in your rookie drafts last offseason, being in the second round, you probably didn't need the quarterback player. You probably lucked into some extra quarterback play in Bo Nix. You might have already had the foundation because you were going to be picking at the end of the first round, either Bo Nix there or the early second round, and you probably just got lucky with the quarterback because you already used a 101 or a 103 on a guy like Jayden Daniels or Caleb Williams. So to me, if you can move Bo Nix and get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who I still believe in, a guy like Drake London, who I think still has a high ceiling, that's probably something that I'm okay doing at this point. Now, if you need the quarterback, by all means, keep Bo, because Bo is a solid player. Do not let me get that understated. Being valued at the QB 11 on Keep Trade Cut, it just feels a little bit pricey for my liking. So let's move on and talk about another quarterback. I want to talk about Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, like I said, I think his year is being a little bit overhated. 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And yes, I understand a lot of it is because he did not meet the expectation of which he came into the NFL with. He only has 5 wins as a pro so far, but you can't really blame a lot of this on Caleb Williams. Now, there is some stuff that you can blame on Caleb, but this is a guy who had his head coach fired in the middle of the season. He went through 2 different offensive coordinators. This is just not the ideal situation to bring a rookie quarterback in when the infrastructure around him is not solidified. There's too many changes going on around him, and no matter how good you are as a quarterback, it's pretty hard to overcome those, especially when you're as young as you are in the NFL, being 23 years old. Now, Caleb Williams, this is a guy who came into the NFL being evaluated as the quarterback 5 over there on Keep Trade Cut. Very, very high expectations just as a rookie without even playing a game. Now, he's dropped all the way down to QB 12. To me, this is buy territory for Caleb Williams. I still believe in the talent. I still believe in the product. I think Caleb Williams right now, being underneath guys like Bo Nix, Drake Maye, and even CJ Stroud, I would rather have Caleb Williams on my roster than all 3 of those guys at the moment. I know it didn't look good in year 1. I know he hasn't met the expectations. This is a player I still believe in. Obviously, I'm still taking him over guys like Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, and Baker Mayfield. Those ones are pretty easy, but they're not even necessarily in the same value range. It's just primarily those guys, Drake Maye and Bo Nix. I think those players are talented. I've always thought that those players were talented. I think Caleb Williams is more talented than the both of them, and I think his situation is better. You still look at the offense, and yes, I know we heard that coming into the year, the best offense of all time that he possibly could have went into. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, those guys haven't changed. We hope that Bo Nix gets additional weapons. We hope that Drake Maye gets additional weapons. We know Caleb Williams has the weapons. We just hope that he gets the offensive play caller to come in and help him reach his full potential. I think they will have a chance to do that this offseason. We don't know who they're going to hire, but I think that they have the chance to do that this year. When I look at some of those overall players, guys like Devon Achane, a 2025 early first round pick, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, I'm moving every single one of these assets for Caleb Williams at the moment. If you're telling me that a team drafted Caleb Williams early last year, didn't go as they planned, and they want to re-roll the dice with an early pick in 2025, by all means take it. There isn't a quarterback in this class that can sniff the talent of Caleb Williams. I just think this is a guy who is a clear buy for me in the class. I will be trying to buy him in almost every single league and get a small dip on Caleb Williams' price. Let's move on and talk about Michael Penix. Michael Penix, he didn't get to play too much this year, only got 3 games of starting numbers at the end of the year. He goes 1-3 in those starts. 2 of them were overtime games against Bryce Young and Jayden Daniels. 775 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. There's not a lot to take away here. The sample size is still very small, but you look at what he's done over the course of the year, starting as the quarterback 24, moving all the way up to the QB 16. Now, to me, this is a hold because, like I said, the sample size was pretty small. I think his value jumped just because he got starts earlier than we expected with Kirk Cousins seasons being disappointing, but this is a player that we still haven't seen very much out of at this point. He's also a player that's a little bit on the older side, 25 going into next year, but he does have a good offensive around him in Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and some other guys. Like I said, this is a hold for me. I don't think he's overvalued nor undervalued. When you look at the value adjacent quarterbacks underneath guys like Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, I think I agree with that up to this point. He's above guys like Jared Goff, which I don't know if I agree with that one, but being above Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young, maybe I'll consider that one as well. I think Trevor Lawrence might be a tiny bit undervalued there as well, but like we said, this is a situation where I think he is very much a hold. The players around him I really don't have too much of an argument with, so I do think that this is probably a proper valuation when you look at the quarterbacks. The overall players, if you can move Jonathan Taylor for him, do it. If you can move the 25 mid first for him, do it. Michael Penix would probably be in consideration for QB1, QB2-ish range in this class anyways if he were in it, so you probably would be willing to do that. James Cook, Devontae Smith, I'm not even thinking about it. I would move those guys for Michael Penix if I need the quarterback position, but this is a player, like I said, small sample size, didn't get to see too much out of. He's a hold. The value's increased just because we're seeing some starts, but it isn't really increasing based off of the production or the performance we're seeing on the football field. Now, talking about players who didn't really see the football field, let's talk about JJ McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said earlier, a complete redshirt year for JJ McCarthy. Played in 0 games, had the torn meniscus in the preseason, forced him to basically miss the entire year, and now he is sat behind Sam Darnold, just watching and learning as a rookie in an offense that obviously gives us a lot of reason to be excited about a guy like JJ McCarthy with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and probably most importantly, head coach Kevin O'Connell. Now, the cool thing about JJ McCarthy is he was so young coming into the NFL draft that even though he's missed a year, he is still 22 years old at the moment. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about JJ McCarthy. There's going to be a lot of buzz, and there is a lot of buzz right now about Sam Darnold possibly signing an extension to play in Minnesota. I've heard a lot of rumors about JJ McCarthy being on the trade block. I don't believe that shit at all. JJ McCarthy is the franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Whether or not that is next year he is the starter or one more year after that, if they want to give a tag to Sam Darnold and let him be the starter next year again, so JJ McCarthy basically gets another redshirt year, this time without the injury, I think that's fine. Like I said, he's young enough that it shouldn't really matter. I think JJ McCarthy is the franchise quarterback. Kevin O'Connell has spoken so highly about the kid, and I know they love Sam Darnold, but I promise you they love JJ McCarthy more. This is a player who started the year as quarterback 20 after the NFL draft, and he's still the quarterback 20, kind of trended up and down and up and down. Doesn't really matter. He's just finished in the same spot, and rightfully so. We have seen nothing out of JJ McCarthy. Now, that being said, I still think he's a buy. This is a player who is currently being valued below Trevor Lawrence, below Bryce Young, just barely in front of Sam Darnold, above Anthony Richardson. If you tell me I can move my Bryce Young for JJ McCarthy, I'm doing it. I'm more than happy to move my Trevor Lawrence to go get JJ McCarthy. I believe that this kid is going to be good. We've seen Sam Darnold get resurrected in this offense with Kevin O'Connell. I think JJ McCarthy is just as talented, if not more talented than Sam Darnold. So you've seen the production with other quarterbacks in this offense. JJ will be the next one in this offense. I'm very confident in buying him at this cost. The additional players being valued around him, guys like Kenneth Walker, a 2026 mid-first, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, these are no-brainers to me. I would offer all of these to go get JJ McCarthy if I need the quarterback, and this is another player. I know I said Michael Penix might be in consideration for QB1 or QB2. Had JJ McCarthy been in this draft, he would be the undisputed QB1 in my opinion. I just think he's that talented of a QB, and I get it. You might see the Vikings jerseys in the background and things like that and think that this is biased, but it's really more so a testament of Kevin O'Connell in the offense and how I believe that the situation around him with the play calling and with the players around him will elevate JJ McCarthy. So this is a player, QB20, more than happy to take a shot on him and buy him at this current cost. Let's go on to the last quarterback we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about Spencer Rattler of the New Orleans Saints. 1,300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He got to play in a handful of games this year, more than we actually thought because Derek Carr got injured. Now, this is a player that I think is a hold. He's not being valued very highly. He's went from the quarterback 38 to the quarterback 32 on keep trade cut, but this is a player who I still believe is the backup to Derek Carr. Derek Carr still has about one more year. It feels like there's a little bit of funny money in there. There's some void years, but when you kind of read between the lines, it feels like Derek Carr's contract has one more real year on it. So he's probably going to be the starter going into 2025 for the New Orleans Saints, unless they want to eat a shit ton of cap space, which I don't expect them to do so. So Spencer Rattler, to me, this is a backup quarterback. He didn't show enough when he did get opportunities for the team to feel confident in him going into 2025. And with a new head coach in this building, they may not even like Spencer Rattler at all. So there's a lot of risk with a guy like Spencer Rattler. The reason why I say he's a hold, though, is the players around around him, there's not really a lot to like. Jameis Winston, Aiden O'Connell, Daniel Jones are the guys below him. The only one that I'd actually probably do at this point is probably if I can move Spencer Rattler for Kirk Cousins, I'm doing it. I think Kirk Cousins probably gets a starting job next year, even if it's just as a bridge quarterback. So that's a player that I'd be willing to move. If you can get Derek Carr, I think he's the starter over Spencer Rattler, so sure. And then Will Levis, I'm iffy on Will Levis. I don't really know what the future holds for a guy like Will, but that just leads me to think that Spencer Rattler is more of a hold. There's really no value when you look at the other players as well. Jalen Tolbert, 27th third, John Mechie, Mike Gesicki. I just don't like any of this shit. I'd rather hold the quarterback and just see what happens. I think there's just a tiny bit chance, even if it's just 5%, that Spencer Rattler starts again next year. I'd rather have that than some random 2027 mid-third round pick. So he's a hold for me. I'm not selling. I'm not buying his ass because I don't think he's actually the long-term starter here or even has a chance of becoming a long-term starter in this league, but I'll hold him just for a couple needy starts if I have that next year and maybe my starting quarterback gets injured. It could be worse than Spencer Rattler. All right, folks, so there you have it. That is my quarterback recap for the 2024 rookie class. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I mentioned, we're going to be doing the wide receiver, the running back, and the tight end versions of this video later in the next week or so. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hitting the like button, and going to join our free Discord. I do have a free Discord linked in the description. I'm in there helping you guys with your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams 24/7, 365. Appreciate all the love on the last video. You guys are actually the best, so I appreciate you guys more than you actually know. But I have nothing else for you today, so I will see you on our next episode. Until then, peace out.